Hello, lovely souls. My name is Jackie, and welcome to the Raven Rabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm an enrolled member of the Washoe Tribe of California, Nevada. I have always been deeply connected to the unseen spiritual world since I was a child. I wouldn't say that my spiritual awakening can be pinpointed to one specific date, time, or event, but rather it was a natural unfolding over my lifetime. And I want to share that journey with you to let you know that your spiritual awakening is divinely guided. If you want help with self-worth and self-doubt, then this is the place for you. I took baby steps to change my life and heal from anxiety, depression, and self-doubt. Ultimately, I built Raven Rabbit in my quest to help others like you do the same. I am a metaphysical minister, energy healer, and intuitive coach. In this podcast, I draw on metaphysical principles, I read energy, and I intuitively guide our conversation with the holistic, indigenous, spiritual approach to life, healing, and happiness. Stick around to explore the unseen, navigate metaphysics to live your life to the fullest, be the happiest version of yourself, and to deeply heal from what holds you back. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 23. I'm your host, Dr. Reverend Jackie Coate, and I am so excited to be here today. I say that all the time for all my podcasts because, again, with manifesting, here I am. I'm doing it, and I love it, and I'm so happy to have you as a listener. Today, episode 23, I wanted to get into something I've been facing very deeply for the past year. It's discrimination at the workplace, and discrimination and social justice is why I do a lot of my spirituality work, to help with my own personal injustices. That's where it originally starts. And then moving into how can I give that to my students as well. So I really wanted to get into the discrimination I've faced at my previous workplace. And I have 10 questions here I want to go through so you understand what happened to me. Because just like my brain tumor episode, we need to understand the what, and then we'll dive into why and really get into the spirituality side of it. So let's get started and dive in. Can you walk us through your experience with the investigation process and how you felt about the outcome? So for the past year, over 370 days, I have been going through the investigation process with the school district, and it has been a nightmare, to put plainly. I've gone through so many ups and downs with it. It started with an informal complaint, because you got to start at the lowest level. I still believe that. You got to work with your administrators and everything like that, the bosses in front of you. And then from that informal complaint, I was retaliated against, and that turned into a formal complaint after 2 incidents happened that really made me be like, this is not okay. So I had the informal complaint that I wrote first, which was for a verbal warning I had received that had no merit, no date, no time, no incident. It was just given to me, and followed up with a 12-page conference summary write-up that had 108 infractions alleged against me. That was my verbal warning. And those infractions are awful. They're the things teachers have nightmares about. I hope you don't as a teacher, but you might. And so I did the informal complaint against that to try to get it fixed and rectified. The formal complaint came after 2 incidents. A director had come up to our school site and said very racist comments about American Indian fathers and how they refuse counseling help. It almost had me jumping out of my seat because it was the most racist thing I'd ever heard. And the second thing, that our school was the center of a hate crime. 2 American Indian students were called out to be killed on what the district deems a death list in their investigation report. And 3 students in total were called out. 1 was a person of color, 2 were American Indian, and I was very upset. I was scared to go to work. I was in a hostile environment. So I finally did a formal complaint with the district against the director who said the racist comments, and against the school administrator for upholding white supremacist ideals and allowing that kind of behavior to happen at our school site. I was very upset, very scared to come to school. I got retaliated against more by that administrator, and which finally led to my third formal complaint, when my administrator wrote me an email, and all the emails basically says was that they had gone through all the contractual obligations to move me, and I was being involuntarily transferred to the 4th grade for my, quote, Native American knowledge. That was something so racist, written right there in an email. Just because I help with Native Club or am an enrolled citizen doesn't deem me in an academic setting to have the qualifications that are required of teachers in an academic setting to have social studies background and history background in American Indian studies. I highly respect those people who have gone through that process and gone through that schooling. I filed that complaint, and I wanted it to be dealt with within 24 hours. It was not. I filed my fourth complaint, one informal. This was my third formal, saying that the district took no action, and it was emailed out to everybody that I was being moved to 4th grade, even though kindergarten slots were open, because of my American Indian knowledge, and basically I had to live with it. And so I came to the hard choice. I tried to transfer out. That's how I was retaliated against prior to this. I tried to transfer out of the school to get away from that administrator. Both of those transfers were denied. I had no friends left at the school because of the amount she was talking poorly about me behind my back. So it was all very awful. It was a hard experience for me to go through. And this is the first time that I'm actually speaking out about it, because I was told through the investigation process I was not allowed to talk about it with anybody or anything, which kept me in a corner more. So the original question was, walk you through the experience. That's what happened. That was my experience and how I feel about the outcome. It all led to finally a year later, which was only supposed to take 30 days, this investigation report that claims that there was no wrongdoing, that I faced no fear in going into work, and everything that I brought up was basically bogus. And it just sent me into a spiral, that investigation report. It was awful. It was a month after my brain surgery. It was really bad news to get. And the next day I appealed it. I appealed it with the district. I appealed it with California Department of Education, Department of Justice. I've appealed it to anybody who will listen, which I've learned is not a lot of people, unfortunately. A lot of our systems are broken. And I sent that out, and I finally got an email back from the board saying, we didn't know you were appealing it with us. So today, over a month since I appealed it with the board, I will be going down to a board meeting this evening to explain the injustices that I have faced. Since then, I have taken a sabbatical to get away from the school because I couldn't get away from the administrator. I got my transfers denied, which is, I told you, absolutely insane. Considering I have a doctorate in education, I should not be denied to transfer anywhere. I took a sabbatical. So I walked away from the pay scale. I walked away from my 5th year teaching at a Title I where we get teacher forgiveness student loans, which would have helped pay $5,000 on my student loan, which would have gotten me much, much lower. I walked away from insurance, which you've heard this year is insane. I definitely could not afford to walk away from insurance with getting pregnant and having brain tumor surgery. And it was devastating. On all of those impacts, I've done some deep soul searching about it, have come from the workplace. It has not come from personal endeavors because I am very happy in my personal life. Question number 2. You mentioned feeling fearful to come to work due to racist graffiti targeting Native American students. Can you elaborate on how this affected you and your perception of safety within the school environment? So May the 5th is actually Murdered Missing Indigenous Peoples Day, which is really appropriate that I'm going to this board meeting tonight to speak up, because May really is a month of awareness. The statistics against Native Americans are staggering. Women are 10 times more likely to be, Indigenous women are 10 times more likely to be murdered than any of the other races. And it's just the fact that I knew this information going to work that day after the racist graffiti, I took it for granted. I took that information for granted. I thought everybody knew that. I thought we were going to be on high alert with 2 Native American students being called out to be killed on that list. And nothing. There was nothing at the school site. We were never told that it happened. I only found out because an aide had sent me some photos. Otherwise, I would have had no idea that hate crime had happened at our school. And they were real people who did those hate crimes, who went to jail for those hate crimes. Those people could have very easily come to school on Monday and targeted those 2 American Indian children, along with all of the other students who are enrolled members or look like enrolled members. So I was very fearful. That was the most hostile situation I've ever walked into. And for the investigation to report to say I had nothing to fear, so is just absolutely crazy. So I don't want to get too political here, but we have 2 presidents, our former President Trump and President Biden. And we can basically say we know that they don't agree much on anything. However, the 2 of them have stated that the Missing Murdered Indigenous Peoples Day is a national crisis. And I found their White House statement that they had made that's put on the whitehouse.gov and went through the archives for former President Trump. And both of them called a crisis, and they urge at the bottom federal, state, and local government agencies to do the best that they can and to become aware and to start educating people around missing murdered Indigenous people. The district blatantly ignores that in my situation. I was told to go to school and it was never even reported. In the investigation report itself, it says it was being cleaned up. Those names and all of the racist stuff that was all over our school was being cleaned up before the cops even showed up to make a report, so that when they made their report, they didn't deem it very inappropriate because it was being cleaned up. They didn't get the full effect. And then I also got told in the investigation report that the principal looked up those names and they weren't on the roster at the elementary school. To paint a bigger picture, I'm in a rural area. When I went to school there, it was a K through 12. It was 1 school. They put up a fence and deemed it 2 schools at the district. Another battle to face one other day. But we know everybody. It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Those 2 names, I knew right away one of them was Native, right off the bat. The other one, I got informed, was Native. And just going from there, if you start talking about siblings and cousins, we easily have some at the elementary school who could have been targeted. We also have 2 advisors who are Native who could have been targeted from that racist graffiti attack. So it was awful. And that's why I turned in the first formal complaint. When I showed up, there was no security, no police force, nothing present. We weren't even told, like, be on high alert. Like, the staff didn't even know. So we had the union president come up, and I was the only person in that meeting who raised my hand to the question, does anybody feel scared to come to work? Not a single soul felt scared. Granted, I am on a mostly white staff. I can only think of one other colored person on that staff. And none of them felt scared because none of them know the severity of missing missing Indigenous people. And they don't understand how we serve 3 reservations at our school site, and it's a serious issue. According to both presidents, a national crisis. So I was very fearful to come to school. So for the investigation report to dismiss that I was fearful is crazy to me. Question number 3. How do you believe the investigation report misrepresented or downplayed the severity of the incidents you experienced? Oh, the investigation report is only out to support the district and what the district did right. That investigation report I received said that they take retaliation really seriously and they take discrimination really seriously, and they don't think any of that was happening in my situation. That nothing I faced was ever happening. I was crazy, basically. And one of the parts is it goes to credible word versus a non-credible word. Basically, the administration was credible for everything that she had to say when she was interviewed. And basically, I had no credible background, which downplayed the entire scenario. So I was the union representative for many years at that school site, and never did I have somebody come to me and say, I got a 12-page conference summary write-up with 108 violations. The fact that the district ignored that in their investigation report, they acknowledge it existed. Its existence is there. Yeah, I was verbally warned. I was given a conference summary. The fact that they dismissed the fact that it was written up for 108 violations is ludicrous to me. I was walking on eggshells at that school because probably I'm a woman and I'm tribally enrolled and recognized as an Indigenous person. I am white passing and white presenting, but doesn't mean that I don't have that in me and was helping those people and similar like me. So I think it completely downplayed the severity of just right off the bat, my informal complaint of being written up for 108 things downplayed the severity of the incident I was facing. Then coupled with the racist graffiti, the racist comments, and being involuntarily forced transferred to the 4th grade for my so-called American Indian knowledge, which everyone who teaches K through 5 or K through 8, we all have the same credential. We should all be expected to teach the same thing. There is no difference unless that person has a single subject credential in something, which mine is business. Again, has nothing to do with American Indian history. And if the district knew that, they would have understood how that investigation report downplayed the severity of the discrimination I was facing. Number 4. Can you provide specific examples or evidence that contradict the conclusions drawn in the district's investigation report? Absolutely. I have a whole file of evidence against the district, which I was not allowed to talk about, by the way. I was told not to talk about it, which also silenced me as an individual. My specific examples are the director from the district came up and made racist comments. I almost jumped out of my seat. My coworker put his hand on me and was like, calm down. I heard her too. It's okay. And I was just like, it's not okay. So that's a concrete example. The email I got from the administrator at the site saying I was being involuntarily forced transferred to the 4th grade for my American Indian knowledge is written in an email. Nothing I could ever make up from a conversation. Written in an email to me. And it blew my mind to get that email. Like, the only way you would come to that conclusion from me teaching kindergarten for the past 9 years is only because of my tribal enrollment and nothing else. There would be no other merits. So I looked up on board policy, what does it mean to make a teacher assignment? What does that mean? And man, oh man, is that board policy clear on how you move teachers and why. You would have a formal interview with them. You would have observed them using that curriculum or teaching that subject. You would have had somebody as an expert in the field come and observe that teacher teach that subject. And then I would have provided a portfolio on why I specifically work for that subject. I didn't do any of those things. Never was I interviewed. Never was I formally watched by an expert in the field. I would have gladly accepted a American Indian Studies person to come in and observe me. Never did I provide a portfolio of evidence of how I can teach American Indian history. All I ever did was just claim who I was and who I was born from and my family lineage. That's all I ever gave out of wanting to, just living my truth. So, how I was drawn out to be an American Indian Studies guru is beyond me. Because I would argue to say, from an academic standpoint, the people who have gone to school for their bachelor's, master's, or doctorates in that have worked extremely hard to get there and know American Indian history like the back of their hand. I just know family history that I've been taught. And the few things that interest me here and there, very much focused on contemporary issues, such as the racist graffiti attack, in which I have photos and more evidence of. And that racist graffiti attack had me fearful to coming to work. So, those are my specific examples of what happened to me and how the district downplayed all of it. Question number 5. Regarding your reassignment to fourth grade, what factors do you believe were truly behind this decision? And how did it impact you personally and professionally? Well, I went over how that decision of assignment is supposed to be made according to board policy, interview, observation from a professional in the field, a portfolio I'm supposed to give, and you're supposed to observe me actually giving the lessons of that. I didn't do any of those things. So, I'm only led to believe that the factors to determine that decision were my tribal enrollment status. There was nothing else. And then the district in the investigation report just keeps saying that it would have been a good fit, quote, good fit. And the principal thought it was a good fit, and the district thought it was a good fit. So, like I went and Googled what's a good fit. Very similar to how you would make a class assignment. I didn't qualify for any of those reasons to make a good fit because none of them said using your race or ethnicity or national origin or gender as an option to check off for moving me for that reason. I met none of the criteria. So all the district was basing it off of was my enrollment number, purely. That's where that decision came from. And the district says in their argument in the investigation report that that's not discriminatory because it's, quote, a good fit. Number 6, you mentioned a district level director making a racist comments about Native American dads. Can you share more about this incident and how it contributed to the hostile environment you felt? Absolutely, would love to answer that question. This director came up. She was giving us something I had fought for at the school, which was to become a community school. I really wanted the reservation folk and the community to be represented by the school because the community really didn't feel represented as a whole, being at a Title I school. So she came up to talk about the community school grant we had received. So seeing this meeting is going to be great. I can't wait to hear what this director has to say. We need some just action happening at this school. Lo and behold, she comes and talks about how these people can drive 40 minutes, 50 minutes down the hill to, that's what we call it, 50 minutes down a windy highway to the district to do laundry. And we give out food boxes and other programs like that, which is all fine and dandy down in where she's from, where you would literally walk to get those services, which is fine in an urban setting. Out here in a rural setting, not fine to be getting those services and to do that and ask our people to drive that far. Then she said we have telehealth. Like, that is wonderful advancement we have made in the community of after COVID is we do have telehealth. It exists. But she said American Indian dads are reluctant to sign up for telehealth, and she doesn't understand why. And why American Indian dads, they don't want their children to get help. And she just went on. And I just about lost it. I held myself together till after the meeting, and I said, by the way, everything you said was completely racist. American Indian fathers have gone through so much generational trauma that you can't even begin to start to understand, and do not trust telehealth and health communities to address their needs and wants. And the way that we do mental health is completely different than the way white folks might see mental health. Nothing wrong with that. I have a psychologist, totally fine, but I do both. And to do both is also fine as well, to go to Sweat Lodge and have elders to rely on. And on the other half, go to my psychologist or therapist. Both wonderful. However, you can't force Native fathers to sign their kids up for a government agency program promising mental health rehabilitation. It's just not going to happen. Not from what I heard my great aunts talk about in the mental health system, or just the health system in general. What I heard growing up. There's no way. So I let her know that. And I don't think she understood the severity of what she said at all until I filed that formal complaint. And she sat there with white tears crying in that meeting, which had me going through another spiral. That's through another issue. Like, your white tears aren't going to fix the fact of what you said and what you believe. And the systems that have created that belief. We have to tear that all down and start all over. So, she was a director at the district, and I'm very disappointed. And that's where I went to say that there's a white supremacy culture happening within the district in itself if you send a director up to make comments like that. So, question number 7. What steps do you believe should be taken to address systemic racism within the district and ensure the safety and well-being of all students and staff, regardless of their race or ethnicity? This is definitely a loaded question. I have a lot of thoughts on how the district could address systemic racism. For me, I think it really starts with education. We're in the realm of education, and those within the district educating themselves about racial issues and systemic racism will start a snowball effect. It starts with education and then learning more and more. From that point, once we do get people to start educating themselves, and the district should be held accountable for educating, is starting with the diversity department, whatever you want to call it, diversity, equity, inclusion department. There's a lot of names out there. Right now it's being housed in the multilingual education, and that's not the same. The multilingual should be housed within the diversity department to recognize that there's many languages besides English in America. But I really think it starts with a diversity department, and that diversity department needs to be very strategic in how they educate the staff, and then the staff needs to be very strategic how it's presented in the classroom and at the school site, the school site culture that goes with it. I've written a ton on this because there's so many steps that need to be taken. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We have a very heavy American Indian population, which others might not. I know in the urban setting we have a higher Hispanic and Black population, which would need to be addressed in itself. Each one is also unique. So addressing the fact that we're all unique and have unique backgrounds is also very important, especially in the district that I'm in. So there's a lot to be done, and I have advocated for that for many years. I started a human rights committee within the union, and it just started with education. Just send out newsletter. I got a lot of pushback from that newsletter too about stop sending me this propaganda and those types of emails back. And it was like, you just need to educate yourself because you're educating these children. And then look what happens when we don't recognize it. We get into the situation that I faced, which was awful. Number 8, how do you plan to advocate for change and hold the district accountable for addressing these issues? So I was silenced to begin with. I was told to not talk to anybody about this. I think that was a huge misstep in my part. I should have spoke up. But how I plan to advocate for change is, it was really personal. I took the pay cut, I took the sabbatical, I took the leave, but I'm still advocating for change, even though I personally faced a lot of challenges with that and spiritually. So to advocate for change is to keep pressuring the district for a diversity department to deal with situations such as these and be proactive rather than reactive. I think in my situation, the district has been completely reactive. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to deal with it when they should know better. We live in 2024. This should not be difficult anymore. You should know the laws. You should know what the presidents have called for our local agencies to do. I don't think it's that difficult, but the district continues to make it difficult. And because I'm a white presenting person, I think I have a bigger platform than most, which I also plan to use to advocate. Because of that, people don't expect those things to come out of my mouth that do. And so it gives me space to talk about those things. And I will definitely use that for good and for the social justice movement. I have filed the formal complaints. I have made the California Department of Education aware. I've made the Department of Justice aware. I have made my senators aware, being a tribal person. And mine's more confusing because we're the Washoe tribe of California and Nevada. So I've let the 4 sets of senators know. And it is just speaking out and speaking up for our community. And I will just keep doing things such as this podcast to keep advocating and to hold accountability to address what happened to me and the larger scale of missing, murdered Indigenous people. Number 9, in your opinion, what role does the district's response to your complaints play in perpetuating systemic racism, and what can be done to rectify this? The district just completely upholds white supremacy within their system, and they're unaware of it because it comes in such small things that we take for granted that we don't understand we're doing it. When I wrote that first formal complaint, I wrote why, and I was like, the district wasn't even ready to hear that complaint. Now that I go back and look at how she's made it patriarchal and how she's made it a fear culture, and we're all in fear of her, like, the district wasn't even ready to hear my complaint because they don't even know the basics of what is a systemic issue. What is systemic racism? They don't even understand what that is to know why the problems keep occurring. Because it's not just with me. It's with other students, it's with other families, it's with other educators who are white themselves who don't understand that they're being mistreated because of the systemic racism that is happening within the district. So I think the district plays a huge role in systemic racism, and they have to do something about it. And it's going to start with that other question, is how do I plan to advocate? It starts with the diversity department. It starts with educating yourself. Just educating yourself on what systemic racism is, then you can see what kind of role you've been playing in that. Last question here for the formal, like, what happened to me? What advice would you give to others who may be facing similar challenges or discrimination within their own educational or workplace environments? I have thought about this a lot. I completely understand. Me as a white presenting person, I can keep going and I could keep fighting because I have white skin and people don't expect what's going to come out of my mouth. They don't know that I'm a tribally enrolled person when they see me initially. And I just have been thinking about the people who don't present white, who are they present BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, or a person of color. And I have felt so much empathy for those people because how do you keep fighting? So my advice to others is to just get your story heard and get it heard in a safe place too. Don't do it. I did it in such an unsafe place. If you have the audacity and guts to do it, go for it. If you don't, and you're going to be silenced by systemic racism, reach out to somebody like me who's willing to help you. And I know those groups exist. I just haven't found them yet. I haven't found my group of people who totally get this situation that I'm facing. And that's because of the systemic racism within the district in itself. Not understanding that it's not okay to force transfer somebody based on their perceived knowledge. That's breaking the law, the Civil Rights Act. And I just work in a place that doesn't understand that. They don't understand the laws that they're operating under. So my advice for educational environments, know your board policy. Absolutely know it. You need to know it. You have to know it. That has helped me a ton. Know the legal laws that you fall under, because some of my laws as a federally recognized person are different. And it's so important to know what those are, to know about the American Indian crafting law, to know about our Religious Freedom Act, to know about the Civil Rights Act, to know about the California Housing and Fair Employment Act. It's so important to understand what those things are so you can be educated in your complaints. You can be educated when you talk and when you share your opinion. It's so important. So those are some pieces of advice. Make sure you know your board policy and the laws. For regular workplace and places, I think knowing your handbook would be really important. To know your job description would be very important. And, they fall under, any workplace would fall under federal and state laws. So to know that as well. So on a more personal note, since this is a spiritual podcast and I'm a spiritual being here having a human experience, I have one bonus question. How does your spirituality and Indigenous heritage inform your perspective on the injustices I have faced within the district? And how do you see your advocacy work aligning with your spiritual beliefs and values. So like I said at the beginning of the podcast, much of my social justice, human rights work is deeply aligned with my spirituality path. My spirituality and indigenous heritage have informed my perspective on the issue that I'm facing because I have a totally different outlook. I can understand and remove myself from the systemic racism, open my eyes and see how I've participated, see how I've upheld, and see how I reject it. I can take that step back because of my spirituality and indigenous heritage. Some people who are in the trenches of it cannot remove themselves from it. They don't see how they have participated, upheld, or keep condoning the behavior because their ego is in line with it. So an attack against systemic racism, they take as a personal ego attack when it's not. You might be triggered. It might feel like ego to begin with, but in the bigger picture, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the system that's been put in place before us, before coming here. And when I say before us, I mean like with colonialism coming over to our land. So my spiritual beliefs definitely have outlined how I've approached this situation. Like I said, it's taken 370 days to even get the district to write this investigation report. And we're well beyond a year of my complaints, letting them know what happened. And just being patient. I'm being tested spiritually in so many ways. I'm being tested spiritually on how much am I going to speak up, which was minimal because I was trying to understand what was happening to me. And I was told not to talk, and I realized now why that was so wrong. I have been tested in my patience because this is not going to be over quickly. Nor will it probably, and it's never going to be over, is my fear. And it might not just be this one particular issue, but human rights and social justice in general is going to be a constant fight throughout my life. So having the patience to deal with that and to educate others around it. So important. So I've grappled with those things spiritually, like how much can I take? My patience is being tried. Who can I talk to about this situation? And I know I'll find the right people, and I know the right person's going to listen to my story and hear it and totally get it and understand why I'm speaking out against what I faced. The second part of this question is, how do you see your advocacy work aligning with your spiritual beliefs and values? I'm very clear on my website about Raven Rabbit's beliefs, and it's that you're going to have a holistic, indigenous, spiritual approach to life, healing, and happiness. So I need to have all those approaches ready. I need to have my spiritual side, my indigenous side, my holistic side. All of those sides need to come together for me to deal with this problem so that I can find happiness, I can find my life here, and I can heal from this. Earlier this weekend, I did a 2-card read on myself. I said, what if my 2-card read was 2 cards? What if I never pursue this? What if I just drop it and let this whole situation go away? Because I don't want to deal with it anymore. My patience has been tried. I'm sick of dealing with it. What will happen then? And then the next card was, what will happen if I do something about it? If I keep speaking, if I keep fighting, if I keep going. So those were the 2 cards I got. The first card for the first question of what if I drop it was inverted. It was upside down, and it was I think the 5 of Thunder card. And the basic message of that card was, you are going to have to heal, and you're going to be responsible for that healing. And you can heal from it. Like, even if I drop everything, I'm going to heal from this experience regardless. It's going to be more personal. And then on the next card of what happens if I do pursue this more and I do take this to the next level. And it was a card I've gotten over and over again. It was the Harvest of Thunder with a crow on it, a raven, which obviously connects with me very deeply. And it has fire on its chest. And basically was saying that whole card's message was, if you pursue this further, you're going to find an enlightened state. Not only will you heal, but you're going to make the way for others. And so while both cards were great, I really aligned more with keep pursuing it, because I have that platform to take it further, and that platform to make an example out of my situation and why it wasn't okay. So while both are extremely difficult, dropping it or pursuing it, they both had positive learning outcomes depending on what I was willing to learn. And in this reincarnation and in this life, I think I'm willing to learn the latter, which is what's going to happen to me if I pursue it. And that's what I'm doing tonight. I will be going to the district board meeting this evening and finally speaking out against everything. I have gone through the process. I have made informal complaints, formal complaints. I waited a year. I took a sabbatical away from all my benefits and pay to try to understand and give them time to do their investigation report, in which I had to get the California Department of Education involved to even pressure them to do anything. And now I have read this completely racist and discriminatory investigation report that's unacceptable. And I will continue to pursue and bring to light to them why it's unacceptable. To claim that you had no part in those really real situations they faced, to me, is diabolical. Like, who is the district to say that I wasn't in fear of going to work every day? Who is the district to say that I didn't have negative effects happen because of what I endured there? I think that their investigation report was completely wrong. And from this moment forward, I'm just going to have to speak up about it. I already know so many downloads have come through this whole year of facing this discrimination from the district, and I'm going to run with it. I'm going to run with those downloads and keep fighting the good fight, which is to fight for human rights at a basic level. So overall, this episode was about the discrimination you face at the workplace. And I think that there's so many of us who can relate to my story and what they have faced, like things that their boss has said to them or have done to them, or things they have witnessed around them. Maybe they're white and they've seen it happen to BIPOC people around them, gender nonconforming people around them. It's very important that we use our association of power to speak up for those people and to stop condoning systemic racism. So that's my take on what happened. I'll keep you updated on the situation as we move forward. Tonight will be the first night I speak up for myself and my situation outside of the formal complaint process over a year later. And we'll see what happens. I hope you liked this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm very appreciative for you listening to my personal problem. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Expand the life, healing, and happiness of others in your field by sharing this episode. You can get more of my content and other helpful tips by following Raven Rabbit LLC on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Be sure to comment on Spotify and answer the episode's question so I can keep creating content you love and desire. Thank you so much.